Trump's NATO ally moves closer to hosting nuclear weapons as tensions with Russia continue to reshape Europe's security landscape. Finland's 830-mile border with Russia could become part of NATO's expanded nuclear deterrence posture in the future. Will Finland face Putin's fury in the next NATO-Russia flare-up as Helsinki deepens its military integration with the alliance? Helsinki abandons a long-standing Cold War-era taboo as fears of a future confrontation with Russia continue to grow. Finland has lifted its decades-old ban on nuclear weapons amid growing security concerns over neighboring Russia. The Finnish Parliament voted 125 to 61 to allow NATO nuclear weapons to be stored on Finnish territory if required. The June 17 move ended a Cold War-era restriction that had barred nuclear explosives from Finnish soil for decades. Helsinki stressed that it does not plan to develop its own nuclear weapons, but wants greater flexibility within NATO. Heikki Auto said, and I quote, "The nuclear deterrence is, in the end, the guarantor of peace in Europe. It's the ultimate deterrence against Russian aggression." Unquote. Finland joined NATO in 2023 shortly after Russia launched its full-scale war against Ukraine. The decision came as Russian forces expanded military infrastructure and established new bases near the Finnish border. Despite its relatively small population, the Nordic nation maintains one of Europe's strongest and most capable militaries. Finnish soldiers have also helped train other Western troops in operating and fighting under Arctic conditions. Earlier this year, Finland announced higher defense spending amid concerns about the deteriorating regional security environment. Critics warned the policy shift could increase tensions with Moscow and make Finland a potential military target. The Kremlin has repeatedly warned that any deployment of nuclear weapons in Finland would trigger a Russian response. Amid these developments, tensions have continued escalating between Russia and several NATO member states across Europe. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer vowed a fresh round of sanctions targeting Russia's economic and strategic sectors while also announcing plans to provide nuclear-related energy support to Ukraine, framing the measures as part of a broader effort to both punish aggression and shore up Kyiv's long-term resilience. Starmer pledged to tighten the financial noose on Moscow by squeezing Russian revenue through additional sanctions, export controls, and allied coordination designed to limit Kremlin access to hard currency, technology, and critical supply chains. The Prime Minister made his declaration during the G7 meeting taking place in France this week, using the high-level forum to rally partners and to underline the UK's intention to lead diplomatic and economic pressure on Russia. The UK's latest threat of sanctions came just days after British forces seized a tanker linked to Russia's Shadow Fleet, an operation that both demonstrated enforcement muscle and escalated tensions between London and Moscow. Observers say Starmer may use the G7 platform to reassure US President Trump and other allies while negotiating commitments to raise defense spending and strengthen collective deterrence, a diplomatic agenda that blends reassurance with pressure. In response to a string of devastating Russian strikes on Ukraine, Starmer pledged £210 million in new assistance, committing significant funds to humanitarian relief, military support, and reconstruction efforts to help Kyiv cope with the immediate and long-term consequences of the attacks. Keir Starmer said, and I quote, "We will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, and this announcement reinforces that. Putin should roll back his tanks, end his barbaric strikes, and come to the negotiating table." Unquote. The United Kingdom is preparing to supply Ukraine with enriched uranium earmarked for use by its civilian nuclear power producer, a move presented by London as essential to maintaining Kyiv's energy security and ensuring uninterrupted operation of its nuclear reactors amid wartime supply disruptions. Officials say the deal was reached during a high-profile meeting between Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Volodymyr Zelensky at Downing Street, where both leaders emphasized the strategic importance of steady nuclear fuel deliveries alongside continued military and economic support. According to reports, this agreement builds on a preceding two-year arrangement to supply nuclear fuel to Ukraine, extending and formalizing cooperation that aims to stabilize Ukraine's civilian energy sector while navigating complex export controls and safety safeguards. New sanctions proposed by the UK would be calibrated to target Russian financial networks and to broaden the list of sanctioned vessels, a dual approach intended to cut Kremlin access to revenue streams and to disrupt the maritime channels used by sanctioned entities. London also plans to focus sanctions on a Russian state-linked network implicated in procuring Western technology, measures designed to choke off the channels through which sensitive equipment and dual-use items are acquired and diverted to military or sanctioned programs. Amid soaring tensions between Russia and NATO, one member of the alliance has now taken direct action against Moscow's oil trade, escalating the pressure on Putin's war economy. On June 14th, UK forces seized the tanker Smertos during a 6-hour dawn operation in the English Channel, turning a dark, early morning transit into a high-stakes boarding. Royal Marine Commandos and National Crime Agency officers fast-roped from helicopters onto the deck of Smertos, storming the vessel in a carefully planned assault. The boarding party was backed by RAF aircraft overhead, a Royal Navy frigate and a mine hunter, underscoring how seriously London treated the coordinated interception. Smertos, which was sailing under a Cameroon flag at the time, was intercepted while transiting toward Port Said, after being tracked as it moved through European waters. According to British reports, the move marked the first time UK forces have carried out such an interception of a suspected Russian Shadow Fleet tanker. The UK government says the tanker is part of Russia's sanctions-busting Shadow Fleet, a web of ships accused of moving banned oil to keep Kremlin revenues flowing. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has insisted the operation delivered yet another blow to Russia, portraying it as proof that London is serious about tightening the oil embargo. London says the ship will now be held off England's south coast for review, keeping Smertos anchored while officials examine its cargo and paperwork. Officials add that the vessel will be closely monitored for safety and environmental risks, amid wider concerns about the aging ships used in Russia's covert oil trade. UK Defence Secretary Dan Jarvis has praised the forces involved in the complex operation, highlighting the coordination between the Navy, Air Force, and law enforcement teams. Starmer said, and I quote, "In the early hours of this morning, I directed our armed forces to intercept a Shadow Fleet oil tanker attempting to pass through the English Channel. This successful operation delivers yet another blow to Russia and reminds those fueling Putin's war in Ukraine that we will not let them hide. I want to thank those involved, including our armed forces and law enforcement officers who keep this country safe 24 hours a day, 365 days a year." Unquote.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.